So now to our next speaker, and that is Dr. Daniel Harvey from Griffith University, and he will talk to you about the potential of virtual reality to modulate body image in people with chronic pain. So very interesting in hearing about that. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Anne, and good to be talking to you all. Can't say good to be here because I'm just in my office. So indeed, I'm going to be talking to you about the possibility of manipulating body image using virtual reality. And this should be quite a good contrast to the previous talks because it's quite a lot less technical and a lot more clinically focused. So body image as a construct is something like the conscious impression that we have of our body. And it can include things like our attitudes, emotions, and sensations. And it bears some relationship to body schema, which is more of a physical or sensory motor representation of the body. It bears relation to conceptual representations of self and all kinds of other things. And these representations that we have of our body are updated constantly as new information is inputted into the brain. And the important thing for today's presentation is that the perception that we have of our bodies is linked to these underlying neural representations of the body, more so than it is linked to the body itself. Of course, our body representations are related to the body, but it's not the same as the body. And those two things can become discordant and different. And in conditions like chronic low back pain, we see some potential indicators that people have body image dysfunction. So, for example, people report high levels of or low levels of physical self-efficacy, perceived strength and skill, that sort of thing. People have a persistent impression of their body as malfunctioning or at risk of re-injury. And of course, they have persistent sensations like pain and stiffness that don't seem to correspond to things that we can find in the body. And we can think of all of these things in some way as coming under that umbrella of body image or body image dysfunction. It's interesting to think about whether those impairments in body image could relate to pain itself. So one view of pain, for example, is to consider pain as a sort of protective response. And if that's true, then it's possible that pain could emerge, at least in part, from having a body image or body representations that are reflective of a body that's vulnerable and in need of protection. At least I'm sure you can see that it's possible that there could be some relationship there. Now I want to jump over and consider this idea in a condition that's known to relate to body image dysfunction, and that's anorexia. This is a clear example of where something like perceived body size does not match actual body size. And for what I'm talking about today, this is a sort of frontier area that I took a lot of inspiration from in what I'm talking about. And that's because there's early data here to suggest that after embodying an avatar of a normal body weight, people's perceptions of their body size and weight become somewhat more accurate. So there's this possibility that by embodying a virtual avatar, we might disrupt body image or disrupt those underlying neural representations of the body in some way. And we don't know yet whether this kind of thing can have sustained effects, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that the possibility that after coming back to the real world, that there could be sustained effects is certainly an intriguing one and one that's worth investigating. So considering this idea applied to chronic pain, and in this case, chronic low back pain, I'm really asking the question, could embodying something like an athletically enhanced avatar aid in disrupting and updating those neurally encoded body representations that might be underpinning a negative body image and perhaps be underpinning pain itself? And I do have to give some credit to Tomohiki Nishigami and Tash Stanton and their team, who really had a similar idea to this before me. What I'm doing is a little bit different. They had a video feed of someone's back that was manipulated to appear hypermuscular, but it wasn't experienced in the first person. It was experienced as a displayed image in front of those, even though it was on a virtual headset. What I'm talking about today is a first-person embodiment where you look down and you see a virtual body in place of your actual body. And I've been using 3 applications that look something like this. So a strong-looking boxer, literally the Incredible Hulk, and a rock climbing application. And these 2 on the left here, you have a whole body replace your body. In the rock climbing one, you only have hands, but the action of climbing, you know, I viewed as sort of replacing the body, because through the action of climbing and effortlessly lifting yourself up the wall, you get a sense of how strong you are without necessarily having to see your whole body. Just to give you an example, this one looks like this. But as I said before, those hands are experienced in the first person. So they're actually, I see them in the location of my own hands. And just to give you an idea of the work I've done leading up to the study that I'm presenting today, and partly presenting it because it's more interesting in some ways as well. We've done a case report testing out this idea as a therapy. So we had a guy with severe and persistent low back pain do 3 face-to-face sessions with me and a full week of daily in-home training engaging with those applications. So we had assessments before, during and after each of those face-to-face sessions. He did that week of training, and then we followed him up and did outcome assessments at 1 week and 3 months follow-up. Again, engaging with those applications. And for the in-home training, he focused on the boxing application because he really related to that. He had done some martial arts when he was younger, and he really felt like that was his younger self. That's worth keeping in mind because that relatability of the avatar might be an important part of the mechanisms of effect. I'm just going to check my time here. No worries. So we've measured, as we've gone, their perceptions of, for example, how strong they are, how agile they are, how vulnerable they feel, and how confident they feel. And we put that together into a score which we called a body image score. So here are those 3 face-to-face sessions with the data before, during, and after VR. You can see that sense of themselves, their perceived strength, agility, vulnerability, and confidence really spikes during VR and seems to persist in that immediate phase post-VR, apparently with not much carryover between sessions. But after a full week of in-home VR, that effect seemed to stick and hang around and appeared to still be there at 3-month follow-up. This is just a case series, so we can't make too much of it, but it's certainly interesting. And I won't focus on this, but his pain data appeared to parallel the body image data as well. And if you want to chase that one up, and lots of the ideas I'm talking about here today, you can find it in this paper here. So the study that I'm here to present is what we've called the superhero study. So we had 30 people with severe chronic low back pain at a tertiary chronic pain centre, and we randomised them asymmetrically to the superhero group and the non-superhero or usual virtual reality group. And we aim to assess those immediate and short-term effects of just a single session, and also to gather some qualitative insight, which I won't present today, but you can look out for that paper. So the trial flow looked like this. It was just a single session, as I said, spending in total about 18 minutes in virtual reality. And we took during and post intervention measures, and also some measures at 1 week follow-up. I'll skip this one for time. And the data looked something like this. So in the what we call the virtual reality body image training group, we, again, a bit like the case series, we saw that spike in those body image scores during VR, and at least some carryover to that immediate post period. We saw a little bit of an increase in body image during the usual VR condition, but it wasn't significant. And so that tells us that this effect is at least in large part unique to the embodiment of the athletic avatar and not simply a phenomenon of being in virtual reality itself. We didn't see those gains persist at 1 week follow-up, but given what we saw in the case report, we didn't really expect that. We might instead expect that that this effect might be sustained from a multi-session trial, but of course we can't claim that from this data. What we didn't see in this group was a reduction, or at least not a significant reduction in pain during VR for either of those groups. That was a little bit surprising given that the analgesic effect of VR in the short term is well established. But this was a very severe group, and they were doing some movements that perhaps they weren't used to. And so I suspect that the analgesic effect of VR at best sort of offset what may have otherwise been an increase in pain due to the movement. So we might view that in a way as a positive, that at least they were able to move without an increase or a flare-up in their symptoms. So just to summarise some of the important findings, despite the fact that the gains appear to be extinguished by 1 week follow-up, and despite the fact there was no significant changes in pain that we could detect at the group level here, we think that the consistent immediate effects of VR-BiT on body image, combined with what we found with the case report, at least supports some further investigation of this idea in a multi-session intervention. So I want to thank the Hopkins Centre who provided a seeding grant for the project and the Hopkins Centre's core partnerships, and look forward to having a chat at the end where perhaps we can have some questions, and I will hand back to Anne.
Thank you very much, Dan, for a great talk. Very inspiring. I also love your figures, you being the Hulk and everything. Pretty sure people will have some questions for you later. I don't see anything in the chat for now. So I will continue first with my presentation, and then we will have a little bit of a general discussion at the end.